Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome everyone, I am your host, Joe Pavlansky, pop culture historian, writer for Scary Monsters magazine, and curator of the Crypt of Classics. Co-hosting as always is the maestro of mail order mysteries and owner of houseoftheunusual.com. The intrepid, the one and only, Eddie Guevara. Eddie, my man, what is going on?
What's going on, Joe? What's going on, man? It's another fun week, and we're here again.
It's been a crazy week and all that. So it's nice to do the podcast and talk about some of the stuff that gets us out of reality a little bit.
Joe, I was thinking the other day, and I want to bring it up and see if maybe we could do a little discussion on it. I was looking at the ad in comic books that said 7 gigantic dinosaurs for $1. First it was for $1, but then later on it came in at $2.98. So you will get 7 gigantic dinosaurs for $2.98.
Now those were the balloons, right?
Yeah, they were the balloons, and I think I told the story before, but just in case I didn't, I'll say it again because it was kind of funny. When I guess I got married in 1983, around 86 or 87, I think it was more like 87, 88 actually. The same company that used to run the 7 gigantic dinosaurs in the early 1970s started advertising again in wrestling magazines. And in fact, I saw the ad in Psychology Today, of all magazines, And believe it or not, Psychology Today would sometimes run novelty ads on it. So sometimes I would buy the issues just for the ads in them. And there was a store in the mall that was called, if I remember, it wasn't Ingenuities. I think it was called Channel 13. And it was filled with science projects and all the stuff, kind of like a Sharper Image, but it was more geared to novelties and science toys. And I saw that they had at that time, they were selling this inflatable dinosaurs that were about 2 feet high. And they had, the T-Rex, the different type of dinosaurs, the one with the long neck. I forgot what they called that one, but Brontosaurus and all that. So I look at the ad on the Psychology Today, and I had forgotten about the ad from the 70s because it was not a very common ad, And I see 7 inflatable dinosaurs for $2.98. Was I in for a surprise when I ordered them, man? In fact, they're the ones that are inside mail order mysteries.
Yeah, they're just a couple of weird looking balloons with dinosaur designs on them, and that's.
But you know what?
Kind of what you got.
Yeah, but kind of what's really funny though is, and like I said, that's the one that Kirk Damaris used to put in, in the mail order mysteries book. But the thing that was funny about one of them obviously popped on me because I blew it up just for the hell of it to see what it looked like. So I only have 6 of the 7. But the thing that was interesting is that the ad read so well. And I was kind of shocked that I fell for it. This is in the late 80s, man. My daughter was already 2, maybe 3 years old when this happened.
Well, before you go any further, for everyone out there, I have a copy of the ad. So let me read them what it says on the ad so they kind of have a context of what you're talking about here. Because a lot of people might not, might have never seen the ad or don't know what we're talking about, but here's what Eddie's talking about on there. I'm going to try to read it. It's kind of blurry and small print, but it has a picture of a green dinosaur on it, and in red background and black letters it says 7 gigantic dinosaurs, and then it says for $1 up to 4 feet tall, and then in little fine print it says, here's thrilling excitement for everyone with this giant-sized collection of prehistoric dinosaurs at this low price of just $1 plus postage. Thrilled to their fascinating names, command these fun-loving prehistoric monsters to your every prank. Toss them in the air and they always land on their feet, swinging and sway. swaying in every direction without tilting over. Great for children, terrific for parties, colossal for adults. So order right now for stupendous fun. Fill out the coupon below. You take no risk because you must agree that these giant dinosaurs are everything we say or your money promptly refunded. Now, who wouldn't want to order those, right?
Well, I did. But the funny thing, like I said, when I did, they, of course, jacked up the price to $2.98. Now, the thing that really made me wonder, like, why would they even, is the fact that they're sending you what it was called at the time, a doll, like a doll shaped balloon, which is you have the body and the head on top. They also had that, like Disney would sell those balloons, but the top part had the Mickey ears on it. And it was always called, like I say, it looks like basically think of a bowling pin.
Yeah, that's what they kind of look like. Yeah,
Yeah, they look like a bowling pin. That when you put the cardboard feet, which at one time they also, I mean, if you go back in the 60s, 70s, they also had 7 gigantic clowns for $1, the 7 dinosaurs for $1. Then they also did the monsters from outer space. Then they had the 48-inch talking monster, moon monster, which it was similar to the poster, but this was it was Regency mail order sold it, and it was called the talking 48-inch tall moon monster or whatever. And what they did with the moon monster is they took the same balloon and they all had the same feet. Like the feet were standard for all of them. So you got, no matter if it was the clown, no matter what, you still got the red, stupid looking feet. It looks like when you look at the cardboard, and in fact, in Mail Order Mysteries, you can see a picture of what I'm talking about.
Now, did you only get one cardboard?
No. You got 7 cardboard feet and you got 7
Oh, okay.
balloons. The thing is, though, when you blow up the balloon, the head of the dinosaur is printed on the top part, and then the body on the bottom. But when you blow it up, it never. Not only did it not touch, sometimes the head was printed a little bit over from the body. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was really stupid. It's the only thing I could say about it that they definitely took people's money with it, and they ran it for a long time. Because even in the 1980s, the same company came back and did it again.
Now here's the monster. No, not monster. Well, monsters, but dinosaurs that came with it. And I know I'm gonna butcher the hell out of these names, but just so people kind of have another little reference, you got a Ceratosaurus, Trachodon, of course, a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You got to have that in everything. Everyone knows what the Rex is. A sea serpent, an armored Demetheus, something like that. A Prosaurophus, and an Allosaurus. I know I butchered the hell
Well,
out of it,
yeah,
but
that's very hard to pronounce. I wouldn't even have tried. At least I give you credit for that.
that's the dinosaurs that came in there, which I'm sure the most popular one was the
Well,
Tyrannosaurus Rex and sea serpent. Everybody I'm sure wanted those.
well, I could
Those would
tell.
be the two I want.
Well, I could tell you this much, Joe. If you look at the mail order mystery book, if you have it in hand, and you take a look at it, you will see that it's a simple black line drawing. It's not even colored in. It's a line art, and you really can't tell what the different dinosaurs are anyway. They all look the same.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
looking at some pictures online, and yeah, it's really weird because, like you said, it does look like a bowling pin. If you were to put a bowling pin upside down, the bottom part of the pin would be the head, and there's like a 2-inch gap between the neck and the rest of the body, and then yeah, I don't know what they were thinking on that,
well,
but it was probably cheaper to save the ink on
okay.
that section.
What was the name of the company that sold it? Was that Lakeside?
Um, I don't know.
The
let me
ad you're
pull up
reading.
the ad again.
The reason I'm asking you is because the one that went over with that was Regency mail order. They
It doesn't really say. I can't tell. It's I'm looking in the book here too, and it doesn't really say. It just says the Giant Dinosaurs Department 2, Carl Place, Long Island, New York. So I don't know
Okay, yeah, then it
what
was
those
probably
are.
no, but I think it was Regency mail order if I'm correct. I have to check that out because I don't have the ad in front of me right now. But what I wanted to tell you is here is a kind of short history of how people got ripped off by the company and the products that were produced. Um, and the astounding, and it's astonishing that people are willing to pay the money that I've seen paid for those balloons. Those balloons first started originally in the early 60s with Casper the Friendly Ghost. It had a Casper figure on it and it had the feet, and they sold a big 3 foot because see that those balloons were made by the Ashland Rubber Company and the National Latex Company. Those were the two wholesalers that made the balloon. The National Latex Company supplied the balloon to the Johnson Smith that they used it for the ghost, and they supplied the Casper the face balloon, on it. The thing is with the National Latex Company is that they didn't print the body of Casper on the balloon. The Ashland Rubber Company from Ashland, Ohio, which the guy retired and the company didn't go under. He just after like 50, 60 years of business, he was old. He says, I'm retiring. I'm closing the door. I'm not trying to sell the company. And I know this because I spoke with the guy. I was getting my supply of balloons through him for my original early Monster Ghost. And the thing that's funny about those balloons are that when they they were made for the Casper, because like I said, the Ashland Rubber Company made three sizes. They made a 10-inch or a 12-inch small doll-shaped balloon. They made a 36-inch doll-shaped balloon, and then they made a large, which was almost 4 feet. Now, the 4 feet was larger than the dinosaurs and all that stuff. The ones they said 4 feet were the middle-sized balloon. I think it was a balloon, the number of the actual product was the 920. Because like I said, I used to buy it, but the medium-sized balloon is the one that was used by the Melton Company. Now, what they did is they printed a skeleton on it with a skeleton body. They printed, the ghost body on it. So the Melton Company would buy them from Ashland Rubber Company, and when they were selling the 7-foot ghost, and they were selling, and they would send this balloon with either, it had the skeleton face or it had the Casper face. And believe it or not, there was a small print run, which I think was like a Halloween special edition, whatever, that actually had the face of the monster ghost that is shown in the comic books that the Melton Company uses that looks like a Dracula. In fact, there is one guy that still has an original one with the face. He popped it. He only has a piece of it that has the face on it.
Oh, that's
and
good.
and he has it. You can see it if you Google it. He shows a picture of it, and it's funny. I contacted him several years ago, and I go to him, "Hey, would you take $50 for it?" And he told me no. I said, "Would you take $100 for it?" And he said no. And that's all he has. He only has the popped balloon that has part of the face. That's the only thing he owns, which is so funny how he treasures that. But like I said, the Monster Ghost is one of those products that is treasured by a lot of people, and to me, it's the best product ever made. Now, what I was saying with the whole story about the balloons is that when they did in a special run that they did the 48-inch Moon Monster, and the reason they said it was talking is because they had a squeaker with it. And what you did is when you tossed it in the air, you pressed the squeaker, or you used it in your mouth, and it went like eh.
Oh, really?
That's what they meant by talking. It's totally stupid. Now I got one of those Moon Monsters. I forgot where I got it, many years ago, and I do have, I believe, one or two of the aliens from outer space because they had like 7 aliens as well. One guy that I know in a flea market paid, ready for this, $85 for one of the alien balloons,
Oh,
a
really?
green alien balloon. So he paid $85 for the. I mean, it's so stupid. If you go to eBay right now, there's a guy selling the Casper still in the original packaging, which is, like I said, it's 3 feet tall. When you blow it up, the balloon itself is almost like, I would say, 10 inches tall. And you see, has the, now with the Casper, you actually are supposed to cut out the feet from the back of the, it comes in a cardboard where the feet are painted on, and it's shrink wrapped. And then it says Casper the Friendly Ghost. It has the instructions how it works. They also made a clown. I think it was made by the Beasley Company or something like that. I'm almost sure it was the Beasley Company. But the whole thing is, the guy is selling one on eBay, and he's been selling it for years. I doubt anybody's going to buy it from him for $150. Okay. There was a set of Casper face balloons they were selling one time, 3 of them, and I know the 3 balloons went for $50, because the problem is that everybody that sees the balloon, they know it was used in the ghost, they know whatever, so it's got some crazy collectible thing out there, and people have paid for this latex balloons a lot of money, including yours truly here, which I paid $890 for for the Johnson Smith one. So that tells you that, yeah, people will pay a lot for this. But anyway, the reason I told you the story of those balloons is because that's how the companies back in the day would advertise, and sell you bigger than life things that in reality you were getting scammed. Now, the alien, it's probably the most sought after by people, I think, because it says talking 48-inch alien from outer moon, moon monster from outer space, whatever. But it's actually, it was funny that they actually sent you a squeaker, and that's what they meant by the talking, and it's a little plastic squeaker you put in your mouth, and it will go.
Well, that's what ghosts do. They squeak. They don't talk.
Yeah, yeah, no, and then the best part is when it says to you, when you toss it in the air, it lands on its feet and swinging and swaying in every direction. My friend, every time it lands on its feet, it tips over. It never stays on its feet.
And I wonder how many poor kids, saved up their paper route money at the time, to to earn their dollar, bought the balloons and blew them up, put them on the feet, and threw them around the yard. And within a matter of minutes, half of them were probably popped and
Exactly,
no good. And just the sheer disappointment that came over them. But you look at that as a marketing,
you,
on the side of marketing, that's great because they pop their balloons and they may want to try to get them again, so they're gonna buy them again because it's a dollar, which was pretty decent amount of money in the 60s and 70s and all that, but it's easy for kids to save up and to get. So
you
if they pop their balloons, they'd want to go out and get some more of them.
let me tell you something, and I'm going to say this to you because I know a lot of times people say the disillusionment, or they were disillusioned, whatever. Let me tell you the truth. I don't think I ever felt that I was ripped off as a time. I don't even think in an 8, 10, 11-year-old kid. I wouldn't say 11. I would say like 10, whatever. I don't think that you even think that people out there are ripping you off. You know what I'm saying? So the point I'm
Well,
trying
no,
to say
because
is,
you got to kind of look at the toys too of the time, of the 60s and 70s, is you didn't have the intricate toys like that started coming out in the 80s and the 90s to compare it with. I think if some kids in the 80s, got a bunch of balloons
they were
with,
happy.
which I don't think they would be. I think that they would compare them to their more intricate toys, their
Of
battery
course, yeah, yeah.
operated
No, no,
toys.
no. I'm saying in the early '70s they would be happy. Listen,
Oh yeah, in the 70s they would be happy because you don't really have too much to compare it to. Yeah, there were intricate toys out there and metal toys and all that, but they were also very expensive. So if you don't have those kind of toys, you're comparing it to something that's pretty similar. So you're not going to be as disappointed in it as, say, someone who, got for Christmas in the 80s a GI Joe USS Flag, and then sent away for these dinosaurs and got some balloons, you're going to look at the balloons and you're going to probably use them with your GI Joe stuff or whatever else, because they're there's no comparison to them. So
You
yeah,
know,
60s and 70s, there wasn't much out there. So I don't think that kids were disappointed or as disappointed as they would be in the later decades to come.
you know what I think the story is also that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there were not that many toys. Like, I mean, toy stores like Toys R Us, going there was like going to Disney. It's like you really didn't get to go there all the time. And when you got it, it was like, hey, look, I still remember, and I have to pull it out because I have a lot of films, a lot of Super 8 films from when I was a kid that I've not, I haven't seen in probably 30 years. Um, my cousin actually has one of those devices that he transfers film, Super 8 film into whatever. And I was thinking of taking them out and having him transfer, and I'll tell you why. I have many of my films, and one of them shows me in Christmas receiving from my aunt. She got, which that's another thing. My aunt was the one that got me the Superman outfit that I thought was the greatest gift ever. The Halloween outfit that was so fantastic for me. I mean, she really knew how to get me good gifts, to be honest with you, which is funny. But I remember her giving us a Mickey Mouse camera. And, you could see me opening, and my other cousin, she's opening it's a Mickey Mouse camera. And the way it worked, it was, I think it was it was a 126 roll, because you had the 110, 126, and then you had the 35 millimeter. But I think it was the 126, and the lens was the nose, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you would flick the camera. Now, it sounds crazy. I think I lost that camera, if I'm correct, in the fire. I still had it. I had it since I was a kid. And I never took any pictures with it. I never actually put a film roll in and used it. But, I mean, those toys were fascinating when you got them. And when I was in Cuba, my aunt would send me, same aunt, she would send me, even though I have many aunts, but this is the one that would always send us like a little gift. And the way they did is that by the letter they sent to her parents in Cuba, my grandparents, she would send me like one or two balloons inside as a gift. And when I got those latex balloons in Cuba, man, that was like the best thing in the world, man. I lived in a farm. I had no toys at all. And getting that, I was fascinated. In fact, this is going to make you probably cringe and laugh at the same time. But the type of balloons we had, and I still remember, because, again, I came when I was 4.5. When my grandfather killed a pig or something, and they were roasting the pig and doing like whatever, he would take the bladder of the pig and clean it out, and he blow it up for me with some, and that was my balloon. And a lot of people would actually relate to me that come from the third world or something,
Oh
and they
yeah, I'm
would know
sure.
what I'm
Absolutely.
talking about, because that's that's the way that people lived. And one thing I was going to say to you, though, is that latex balloons, because of that reason, I guess they were so important to me as a kid, that even today, the latex balloon I respect it. I really love latex balloons. I love to have them anytime I can, and sometimes I just blow one up for the heck of it. I like latex balloon, always did. And that goes back to the time, growing up and then getting the 7-foot ghost and all that stuff. So
Yeah, balloons were pretty big, back
they
in the
were.
80s and all that. I don't think nowadays they aren't, because like we were talking, is that kids just are more preoccupied with other things. But yeah, I mean, in the 80s, we especially birthday parties, my gosh, I mean, that was the main thing. You had to have balloons. When you're 5, 6, 7 years old, you got to have balloons, and you taped them on the walls, on tables, on everything.
Well, even today, Joe, today they have actually specialized people that actually, I mean, they call, in fact, you got to pay them a lot of money, but they build this whole things with balloons.
Oh
They'll
yeah, I've
build,
seen some of them. They're just amazing.
believe it or not, I went to a convention one time, right? And this person built a 7-foot Robbie the Robot with balloons. And when I saw that, I actually wanted to take a course on how to become a balloon. I forgot what it's called, balloon consult, not a consultant, something balloon guy.
Yeah, there
And
you go, master balloon guy.
no, it was something, and it was funny because I wanted to learn how to, how to build things with balloons and stuff, especially like people that do wedding planners and stuff like that. Like,
Oh, it's definitely an art
yeah,
form. And yeah, they make probably some decent money out of it. And
oh,
I'm
of
sure the
course,
better you are, the more money you could ask for. Just like anything. And it's funny story is I was at Giant Eagle today, and there was a few hours over. There was a little girl in her cart, and she was holding a helium balloon. This was a huge. It was like a clear balloon, and I couldn't tell what was printed on it. It looked like some cartoon stuff. So I don't know, some of these newer cartoons that the kids watch, and then it looked like it had confetti or something in it, and I don't know what she did because I wasn't looking at the time, but you just heard this loud pop in the store, and her balloon just was I looked over, and it was hanging on the side of the cart, and there was confetti all over the floor, and she's just like staring at it. And the mother and father were laughing. I said, I'm thinking like, man, that poor girl, her balloon is just, she was probably holding it waiting for her parents to buy it, and it popped, and her poor parents probably still had to pay I'm sure it wasn't cheap, for the balloon. They probably still had to pay for it, and it's, already already
you know,
gone.
it's funny when you're saying that because latex balloons still hold a very strong. In fact, I think they're stronger than the mylar balloons. And the reason for it is because the mylar balloons, the only good thing about it is they stay floating for days, while the latex overnight it falls to the ground.
Well, those
Uh,
like those older latex balloons, they kind of harden up and crack, don't they?
well, the problem is, yes, they do. But my 7 foot ghost is, and I got two of them. Somehow it survived 40 some years, which is crazy, and it's still soft. It's not. You can actually. I'm sure that if you try to blow it up, it will probably pop. But I mean, they're in mint condition. And don't ask me how that survived, man. Only God knows. But I got to tell you one thing, though. One of the things about balloons, especially that I always found so fascinating, there was another aspect that maybe you never, or not that you don't know about it, you probably forgot about it. But Johnson Smith, especially Honor House didn't really sell it much. I think maybe like in their catalogs, you'll see one, but it was really Johnson Smith all the time. And Edmund Scientific, they always sold the weather balloons. And those were balloons that were 10 feet high.
No, I never seen those.
Oh my gosh. Any Johnson Smith ad you see in comic books, and any, I think it's just mostly Johnson Smith, to be honest with you, always sells the 8 and 9 foot weather, 10 foot weather balloons. Then there was another company at the time, which, oh my gosh, it was one of the best catalogs ever. And it was called the Spiegel catalog. Spiegel was a mail order catalog that sold a lot of toys. It was kind of like a Sears catalog, but a lot thinner, and went more into the novelty field. But they also sold the weather balloons. And then Edmund Scientific, which is still in business today, by the way. Edmund Scientific always sold. In fact, I remember in Edmund, I was talking to somebody the other day. We were talking about telescopes, and I was saying how I was always fascinated by telescopes. And one of the things I think that fascinated me about telescopes was that every time you picked up a Johnson Smith catalog, they always had telescopes in it. They had one that was what they call a refractor. Now, refractor is the one that you look from the bottom up, and then the reflectors are the ones that you look from the top down, and it has like a mirror that reflects and it tends to give you like a wider field of what you're looking at. They sold Johnson Smith. They used to sell for like $6 the kit on how to make a telescope, a refractor, and they used to sell the other one for, I think, if I'm correct, it was like $29 or something. I know it was a lot of money for anybody. I could only look at the ad. I knew I wasn't going to afford it. But we were talking about all that stuff, and the point I'm trying to say is that Johnson Smith sold the hot air balloon, the 9 foot UFO, the the weather balloon that was 10 feet. And I remember that I wanted to sell the weather balloon too. And I remember getting a couple of weather balloons. Now, these things are huge. They're like a foot in diameter, and you can blow them up, but you can't blow them up with your mouth because they're like really thick. You can blow them up to like 10, 11 feet high. And they're weather balloons. You suppose they're using for the weather. They, fill them with helium and they let them go up in space. But the whole thing is that I've always been attracted to balloons of one way or another. And the dinosaur ones, those were to me pretty cool. In fact, I wish I would order a second set, which I didn't. But I said I was, and I just never did. One thing I wanted to also tell you when we're talking about we started with the dinosaurs and stuff, is another thing that they used to do, especially with dinosaurs, which was fascinating. They always sold like a piece of fossil, but they would show, and this was very common in all the ads. You see how the ad for the 7 gigantic dinosaurs is that they have one main dinosaur. He's looking to the left, and he's got all his body there.
Yeah, it's the green one.
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
what it's called.
Well, they had one, and they showed T-Rex, and he's looking again. He's like facing, and then he's got his head turned to the left with all his teeth, and it would say 20 million year old fossil, and then they would send you like a piece of fossil, little rock, whatever it was, or they would say shark tooth. They were very popular. Those things were very fascinating. And to this day, every time I go to a novelty store, such as one of those stores inside a museum or something like that, I always find myself buying those shark teeth or fossilized dinosaur bone. And that's what I told David. I said, David, I really still like that stuff. Like I get attracted. Like I don't really care much about dinosaurs that much, but the novelty aspect of it, I love.
I tell you what, I picked up a couple weeks ago at my local comic shop, and I love remember the old classics illustrated comic books. They usually did classic stories or history in comic book form. So they had a prehistoric world there one, and it's kind of like a giant sized issue. I don't know how many pages it has, maybe 60 pages, and it's all kind of prehistoric times. On the cover it has some caveman with looks like a woolly mammoth or something like that, where they're hunting it. But the inside, man, I'm looking at it right now, for 1962, and it was put out by the Gilberton Company. The artwork's absolutely phenomenal, and the dinosaurs in there just really pop off the page and come to life. And it's really cool because they integrate like fictional stories with they'll show you like a illustration of the dinosaur and then give you a little fun fact about the dinosaur or about the time that the dinosaur was in there. And there's a little bit conjecture too going on in there, but it's for a kid in the 60s to see the comic book while he's probably playing with his 7 foot, or not 7 foot, but a 7 dinosaur balloons, to have this comic book, he would definitely be looking at the book and looking at the dinosaurs and going, where the heck's the disconnect here? Why is why don't they look like what's in here? Because they're so lifelike, the illustrations and all that. And I can't find who was the artist. It doesn't have them listed. I probably find it if you go online and do a little bit more research, but there's some really good factoids about the dinosaurs and how they evolved and how the primitive man evolved. So it's really cool if anyone's out there, and you can find them pretty cheap on eBay. It's Prehistoric World, and it's under the Classics Illustrated. It's a special issue number 167, and it came out July 1962. And it's really, really cool comic. Like I said, if you're into dinosaurs or even a comics collector, try to pick one up and take a look at it. There's a lot of cool information, and even if you don't want to read it, just flipping through, checking out the illustrations are just phenomenal.
It's It's funny you said that because I told you I was, fixing up the my little area here, and I came
Oh,
across two
really?
of them. I don't know what year they're from, but yeah, they were the artwork
Was
on
it
it
the
is
Classics
really good.
Illustrated?
Like it's yeah, yeah. I didn't really look through them. I just put them. But I did see them. I
Oh man, you got
spotted
to
them.
flip through them. I mean,
Uh,
whoever was the artist on that, it looks like the old like the old Tarzan comic strip artist.
yeah, yeah. You know what? It kind of reminded me. You're right. There is not just the Tarzan comic, but there's another comic. I forget what it's. Son of Tarzan. I think Torzak, Torzak.
Or you were thinking of Turak? Yeah,
Oh, Turak. That's right, Turak. Yeah, that's what it
yeah.
reminded
It's
me of.
really kind of like that Hal Foster artwork from the Tarzan comic strips, and it's absolutely
It,
fantastic.
it, am, am, am I correct in saying Turak, son of Stone?
Is it Turak Son of Stone? Let me see.
I think that's what it is. Turak, son
Yeah,
of
Turok
Stone. I
Son of
know that
Stone.
the
Yeah, Turok.
yeah, yeah, that part when it said son of Stone always attracted me, man. And there was one, and now that you just mentioned Turak, you reminded me this. I went years ago. I don't know where it was, but they were selling this robot. It was like 12, 13 inches tall, and it was something stone, the man of stone, and it's a robot, but it's made
Oh,
of
really?
stone. Yeah, and I bought it, man. I still have it mint condition somewhere. I haven't seen it in years, but it's really cool, man. I mean, I have it. I know I have it somewhere. Don't ask me where, but I have it in a box. Now that you said that, I just wish that I knew where
Yeah,
it was. I'd like
that
to look at it.
Turok. I'm looking at it online, and I do have some of. I don't have any of the original ones, or yeah, you know what I do? I have some of the Whitmans, but the ones I really remember are the Valiant ones, where he was, he had
Yeah,
yeah, he had
Valiant.
guns and
Yeah,
everything where he's, going through the almost like it was almost like kind of like a fantasy sci-fi, but if you pick up the Whitman and the Gold Key ones, all that they're drawing fantastic, and they're really set during that period. You have people using spears, bow and arrows and all that, and you have cavemen, you have Indians and everything. So it's yeah, that's a cool series. I forgot about that, man. I'm glad you brought that up.
actually, the only thing bad about Valiant is Valiant made. I mean, the artwork is beautiful, man, but it always lack ads. There's
Yeah,
never ads
yeah,
in it.
that's true.
Like I think it's because they were done in the early '60s, maybe late '50s. So for that reason, like they had like Prince Valiant. The artwork in that is phenomenal. And my son's doctor, I got him a number one a couple of years ago. I think it cost me, if I was correct, close to like $50 or something. I got it for him as a gift because he used to read that as a kid, and he's about 70 something, so that tells you how old that comic is. And it's called Prince Valiant. And I also got a number one for myself because I gave it to him. I said, let me get one for me. But yeah, the artwork at that time is really nice, man.
It
It's
it
done,
almost
but
seems like the
it does.
and a lot of those Gold Key and Whitman comics and everything, even the Dell comics. So some of the artwork was hit and miss. They always had a beautiful, painted or painted cover or movie scene cover, but it always seems like the dinosaur ones had the best artwork inside, and there was some really good artwork for Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and a lot of those more popular sci-fi ones, but it just seems like there was something about the dinosaur ones where the illustrators really put in the detail to bring them to life. And that's just my opinion. I'm sure someone's out there, you know, gonna have their fist raised in the air, going, "No, this one's the best one." It's just my opinion, but it always seemed like the dinosaur ones were just spot on.
They definitely were. I'm trying to think when you were saying right now. Recently, I remember you said you also like serial magazines, and you found that one with the Batman, and we were talking about the different serials and stuff. I found in the now I'm actually, it's called Serial Quarterly.
Oh yeah, I
And
got a ton of those serial quarterlies. Those are great magazines.
Yeah, and this one has Deadwood Dick in the front, something like that, and it's like a skeleton with a he's like a cowboy with a skeleton face, and he has a gun, so it looks something like the Lone Ranger. It's kind of cool. Yeah, I have a couple of those. I just thought because I wanted to ask you what you think of those magazines because I know you told
Oh
me you like
yeah,
the
yeah,
serial
those are great.
magazines and stuff.
I got maybe
But
about, I don't know, maybe 10 or so of those. Those were put out in the '60s, and they're like a fanzine for the serials, and they're really good. I've read some of them, and they're good for the time. A lot of some of the information is outdated, and you could find it updated, and but they're cool to have and to look real great illustrations and all that. I'm looking online right now. I see that Deadwood Dick one with the guy with the skeleton mask and the six shooter. That's just a cool cover.
yeah, I have a couple of them. I don't know when I obtained them, but I do have them. I also have another one that it's pretty old. I forgot the type, but this is I'm telling you, I found all this kind of tonight and stuff, and I didn't even know I had them to be honest with
That's how it goes,
you.
man.
But yeah, it goes that I don't even know what I have anymore. But I can tell you this much that it's fun though. One thing that's fun about that is because when you have a collection as big as like what I have, is most of the time you can go through stuff and you can hey man, I can't believe I had this, and you start enjoying the same stuff you bought 20
Yeah.
years ago, because you're like, wow, I got this,
Yeah, I
man.
was doing that not too
And
long ago, and I was going through a closet and trying to reorganize, and I came across a lot of things I forgot I even had, and it's always fun to revisit them because then that feeling of nostalgia and all the memories start flooding back to you, and one thing I
well,
do. Yeah, and I see them in the store sometimes, but I don't like them. And going back to the dinosaurs, is some of the newer dinosaurs that they have, the rubber ones. And I remember some I had from the '80s and all that they were just really cool, man. And I used to have this set that I would bring to class, and this had to been around mid '80s, and they were these small, maybe about thumb size rubber dinosaurs, and they came in like bright green, fluorescent pink, red, all these like weird colors, and it was just one solid color of the dinosaurs. But I used to always, I'd bring a whole pocket full of them to school, and you know, me and whoever was sitting closest could play with them because they were easy to conceal away from the teacher and all that. And if we got caught, we could always say we're studying dinosaurs or whatnot. So I wish I had those. I know they're either somewhere or they're somewhere in my collection or they're lost. I'm almost going to say that they're lost or might even be at my parents' house, in a box somewhere. But I know there's got to be a few of those around, and I want to say those are around mid '80s, maybe around '84, '85. And I don't remember who put them out. They might have just been like a from the dime store or maybe from the local drugstore.
I know which one you're talking about. I have a couple of those. Let me tell you something though. When you said about the time, right now, last year, I went to Walt Disney with the family, and I took my grandson. We go there, and I'm walking around one of the stores with my grandson in Animal Kingdom, I think it was. They had this dinosaur that was about 2 feet tall. Not 2 feet, I would say 18 inches tall. Let me not exaggerate too. It was like $39, man. I bought it for him
Yeah.
on the spot. I really bought it more like for me, man, because I knew that moment that his mom didn't want it in the room. She throw it down and I keep it. But what a dinosaur, man! It was a great looking T Rex, man. So I know what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I found a
They
few of
made
them here on eBay. It looks like they were put out by a company called Russ. But yeah, they came out in the '80s, and they're going for it. Someone got three of them up for 1350, and so they're definitely still around. I'm gonna have to look into it a little bit more and see if I could find a few on eBay and maybe pick them up if they're a decent price, man. Because those are just pretty cool. You know what? I don't like they're nice. I don't like the more detailed ones. I mean, they're nice and all that, but I'd rather have just the ones like I used to have when I was a kid. I never had the real detailed ones, so I'll stick with the
Well,
fluorescent green T Rex.
you know something, I want to tell you what. Growing up, and I'm sure you did it as a kid, when I was in school, sometimes I would start daydreaming, and I'd take a piece of paper and I started not daydreaming, but I started drawing, right? So I started drawing like little stick figures of soldiers and stuff, and I would put like forts and they're shooting at each other, and I would be drawing war scenes, you know, and I used to, I don't know, I used to love doing that. Like I would draw the soldiers fighting another soldier in battle and stuff, and then I would love toy soldiers, you know, and I would put them up, and then the cowboy and Indians, and you would have a fort that they would sell you the kits because they used to sell that in the
Hmm.
70s a lot, where you got a kid and all that stuff. In fact, in the 70s, another thing they sold was, I remember there was a town that you built the town. It was all out of cardboard, and it came in a magazine. So it was kind of like a hardcover magazine, and it had a whole town. So you punched it out, and you built this whole town, and you had the jail. You had it was so cool, you know. It was kind of like the
Yeah,
paper
oh
dolls,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. You know what I?
Um,
It was funny because I did a an article for Retro Magazine. I believe it was issue number 9. It has Captain America on the cover. I think it was number 9, and it was on coloring books. But part of when I was doing the research for the coloring books were on paper dolls that were when they were real popular, and you could color in the paper dolls and then take them out and put them together. Well, shortly after I did that article, one of my other comic shops I frequent, he sent me a message and said that he had some from the 40s that they were Captain Marvel paper dolls. They were in mint condition, nothing punched or anything like that. And I picked those up, and yeah, the paper dolls were really cool. And some of them go for a decent amount of money, and they're still readily available. You could find them online and everything.
Now I'm old. I mean, I'm 56, but paper dolls were a little bit before my time, you know.
Yeah, those were mostly
Uh,
pre like 1940s and all that. Even I mean a little bit into the 50s they got, but there's if you go over to the classic horror film board, I can't remember what section it's in, but there's a topic on paper dolls, and there's a guy who's actually he's producing Universal Monster paper dolls, and I can't
oh wow.
remember if I think he's just still in the process of doing the artwork and everything. I don't think that he's put them out yet, and I can't remember his name or his website or anything. But if you go over to there and you go in the I think it's in the memorabilia section. You could find it, but they're really cool artwork, and it's really he does it in like a vintage style, so it almost looks like a watercolor mixed with I don't know maybe colored pencils or crayon, but it's very well done, and you have all Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and everything. So I don't think they're making a resurgence, but there still is that small collecting niche for them that's out there.
Well, you know what? Like I said, yeah, my wife loves them because she's 4 years older than me, so obviously she did play with them a little bit before I did,
Yeah.
you know. But what I'm saying though is that they do have. You see, I think in the 70s when I was growing up, especially the early 70s, as 1971, 2, 3 stayed, you were still basically playing with the same paper dolls and regular toys. But as the 70s, mid 70s came in, Atari, they started introducing Atari, they started introducing all that stuff. And what happened is that all that stuff came in, and as it came in, little by little, that's when I could say that the transformation took place, where now video games start coming in,
Yeah, you had
and
the
then
technology age kind of wipe that
the
stuff out.
technology was there, right? And as late 79, 80 came in, And I told you, I said this to a lot of people, which, like I said, this is the truth. What happened? Comic books as a whole stopped. Like in 81, 82, you couldn't find a comic book in any store. In fact, I don't even know where they sold them. I lived in New York City. There was no comic books before 1980. You would go to any store, any candy store, and you had a rack of comic books. And I always used to go and buy my Archie comics. Not Archie, I'm sorry, Richie Rich. Harvey comics. And yeah, I would also buy Archie comics. I used to read, and I was very, very, to me, the most popular one was Harvey, which I did Richie Rich and Casper and Spooky, the Friendly Ghost, Hot Stuff, the Little Devil, all that stuff I would always buy. I would always have. In 1980, 81, I never saw a comic again. 1984, wrestling starts getting popular. McMahon is killing with, WrestleMania. And now, of course, there's also the part that in 1980, 81, now I've become, a young guy. I'm a teenager. I'm not interested in comics. I'm interested in girls now.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what
how
I'm
it
saying?
used to go.
Right. That's all I thought about the time. So I wasn't, but in between, I am trying to say though, there was no comic books. And I said to myself, wow, I wonder where they stopped making, which I'm sure that didn't happen 100%, but there was no sales of comic books. And then in 84, man, they made a resurgence with a vengeance, man. They came out all over the place. Comic book stores came out all over the place. Wrestling magazines were, and then there was a resurgence against the mail order ads. Brat's Fun Shop. There was one called ATH, something like that, which also had advertised in the early 70s, but I think they made a resurgence. That's when I ordered those dinosaurs. Everything was back again, kind of like it was in the 70s. Now, the strongest years of mail order, I would say, were between 1973 and 1979. I mean, Boys Life magazine had like at least 5-6 pages of mail
Now,
order ads.
why were the 70s more popular than say like the 60s for mail order?
The 60s were too. You see, in the 60s, people weren't really used to getting things in the mail. You know what I'm saying? Like you had mail order stuff, but the predominant people were Sears, Roebuck, Montgomery Ward. People would buy things in cash, but a lot of kids in the 60s didn't have the money to be sending away for things. I mean, this is because in the 70s, those things were like 50 cents, $1, 25 cents. Like you could buy hot pepper gum for 25 cents. The Joy Buster was 50 cents. Snowstorm tablets were like 20 cents. And people made a profit with that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Mid 60s, and I really can't say because I wasn't born at the time. I was born in 64, so I was too young to even know that, and I was still in Cuba. But what I see in the mail order part of mail order with comic books and stuff is that between 1961 and 64, there were very, very little ads. There were a few things, but not that much. When 1965, 66 came in, then Honor House and Johnson Smith was selling a lot of stuff, but it was still, it was lacking. But then for some reason, and I know this is a fact because, not only did I did the research, I lived it. In the 1970s, mail order novelties from the X-ray glasses, the Whoopee, I guess because they couldn't get it in any store. But man, that thing blasted, bro. It blasted the covers. And let me tell you, just like, for example, I was talking to you the other day on the phone on this. I have never seen, and I'm telling you, only one store, and this was like maybe 2 years ago. I've never seen a store that ever sold the X-ray glasses. And I used to go to all the magic shops in New York. I used to go in Manhattan, in Florida. No magic shop ever sold the X-ray glasses. In the mid 80s, late 80s, when they started selling the X-ray glasses, they used to sell the Chinese knockoffs, the X-ray gogs. They never sold the X-ray glasses that we know of. They were always sold through Johnson Smith. They were sold through Honor House, through different mail order companies, and they were sold into the millions. But they never sold them in stores. So maybe that's why I think the popularity of mail order was at the time. And they were, I mean, it was, what it is? I think mail order offered you the same thing as going online
Right.
today and going on Facebook and stuff like that. It offered you bigger than life. The way they were advertising in comic books, the way they exaggerated with the artwork and everything, it just caught the kids' attention. And Boys Life magazine, that was the killer for that, because that had more ads than any other comic or anything. I think the majority of the mail order stuff came from Boys Life magazine. And every boy that was a Cub Scout would get it, or Boy Scout, I mean. And that's what made it such a popular thing. Now, in the 80s, again, everything stopped. Mail order, was not as popular. I mean, because in the 70s, you had all this music companies selling you records and tapes, and you always had these commercials that order the disco top 20 or whatever it was. In the 80s, when 1984 rolled in, from 84 on, man, it was the Gutbuster, the Ginsu knives. Mail order started taking off again, like on a rocket
They
ship.
started
And
hitting
then
those adults that were used to buying the stuff in the 60s and 70s, the toys, so they were now hitting them with adult toys.
Well, actually, that's the whole thing. They weren't hitting them with adult toys. They were hitting them with kids' toys. Again, the same novelty stuff. Because in 1984, when wrestling became very popular, and there were about 11 or 12 different wrestling magazines. One of them was Wrestling Eye, Wrestling Fury, Inside Wrestling. And I'm telling you, because I used to buy them all because of the ads, they were filled with the Hercules wristband, the 6-foot practice dummy that you could get for $1 in karate, the karate dummy that was 6 feet tall, and all those ads that were run in the 60s and 70s came back again in the 80s. In fact, if you take any magazine of wrestling from the 80s, you're going to see the same ads you would see in comic books in the 60s. I'm sorry, in the 70s. What happened that was kind of crazy is the original Honor House company became Guaranteed Distributors, and Guaranteed Distributors made a fortune selling pellet firing pistols. Which in reality, they were selling plastic pistols. In fact, earlier tonight, I found one of the original catalogs. They had about 11 different pellet firing pistols. And all they did were a plastic thing that, let's say the pellet that it fired was shaped like a plastic bullet, and you could shoot it into your hand. I mean, it would only go 10 feet away. It was not up, but they would say target practice, and you get free targets. Same ones that Honor House sold, but they had them in Guns and Ammo magazine. They had them in Soldier of Fortune magazine. They listed in a Shooting magazine. All the real gun magazines, they had ads in it, and they had full-page ads.
That's
And
definitely gonna have to be another, whole show right there. Is just the mail order, guns and all that. Well, we got about a minute and a half here left. Time definitely flew tonight, so
yes, it did, and we can definitely talk because I'm the guy that bought every single one of
yeah,
those pistols.
we'll definitely
and not only
do another show on those pistols and all that, because I'd really like to get into that, because I remember buying a few when I was younger. So so let's wrap it up here real quick. Here we got about a minute and a little bit over a minute. So
okay, so
everyone out there, thanks again for joining us. Head over to houseoftheunusual.com. Sign up for our free mailing list. Sign up for the forum. You could connect with other people out there that have the same interest in monsters, mail orders, pop cultures, all that good stuff over there. And there's a section on the forum to let us know what you want to hear on our show. So if there's a special topic you want us to talk about, mark it down there. If you want to be a guest, drop us a line, and we'll get you on. Also head over to House of the Unusual on YouTube. check out the videos Eddie's posting up. I know he's going to be throwing a few up there, a few new ones in the next few days. So check those out, and check us out over on Instagram at House of the Unusual. So that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody for stopping out. Eddie, as always, thanks again for the chat, and I'll see you next time.